Hey there, and welcome to part 2 of the Origins redesigns. This video will be featuring all of the Reapers from Origins, the Reboot, seasons 1 through 3. If you haven't already, please check out the previous video on all of the Origins vessels. Without further ado, let's begin with our favorite Reaper of all time, Imp. Of course, you may have already seen Imp's redesign in the finale of the season 1 reboot of Origins, but I figured this would be a great way to show you the full design. Imp has a lot more rounded ears in his full design now because I really liked drawing it on his more gremlin form, and it kind of resembles the little rat form he had in the pocket watch, so now it's going to be a permanent thing. Some new lore about the Reapers: they have these amazing abilities to have various shadows cast in the rift. Essentially, instead of your shadow being your own, it's going to be a separate being. It's going to act as its own thing. Imp's shadow is going to be a cobra, which is the reason why his Reaper mask looks like a snake, because it is a cobra. It's been a lot of fun coming up with a lot of the new lore for the reboot, and I won't get too into it because I want you all to see it firsthand when season 3 drops. But just know throughout this video we will be showing off all of the different shadows for each of the characters. Obviously, Imp has freckles now, which is just something that all the fans had suggested and I had always wanted on Imp, because personally I thought the freckles reminded me of Bubbles, because we all know that Imp died via drowning, so I like to think of the freckles as sort of a way to symbolize his death underwater. And of course, we are going to be showing off the new design for Imp's little goblin form, or pocket watch form as I call it. Anyone who gets outcast as a Reaper or even banished into some sort of object like a pocket watch will have some sort of little different form, an Imp form if you will. And Imp just so happens to be a little rat with horns and wings. Because what's more impish than that? Of course, he's still got his freckles, but it's been a little bit more minimalized because he's just so itty bitty. And his tail has a lot less detail. But it's always been like that, and it's a classic mark of his, I believe. And there you have it. That is the redesign for Imp for the Origins reboot. Next up, we have our favorite grumpy cat, Morven. Everybody seems to love this character because he is just so grumpy and he's just so short and stubby, and we love that for him. We love an angry short king. Morven is actually a British short hair, which means he is going to be a little bit stubbier. He's got that pushed in nose, so we went ahead and made that a little more prominent in his new design. We actually did this design on stream before, I just tweaked it up a little bit. His shell is definitely more tortoise-like since he is a tortoise and not necessarily a aquatic turtle. And I decided to add some spikes onto that shell because that would just be a really cool battle move to have him sort of pop into that shell and spin around with some cool spikes on it. Morven does now have some spots and freckles as well, because in his alive design, which I will not be showing any of the Reaper's alive designs because that is spoilers, but in his alive design there was that sort of thing, but it was covered up by the Reaper mask, but now I want it to be shown even though the Reaper mask is there. A lot of the masks are being redesigned to look a lot more like the animals, so obviously Morven's mask looks more like a tortoise, and his shadow actually mimics 2 different turtle heads. The reason why I did 2 different types of turtles as the shadows is because I thought it'd be really interesting if Morven appeared to have almost 3 tails and the other 2 acted independently. And that is Morven's final design. Hollow is next, who is actually Shiva's subordinate. Hollow is basically next in line to take over the rift if anything happens to Shiva, and is honestly Shiva's best friend. But Hollow's design has always been very plain, and originally Hollow was going to be the main character of the Rift series, which is now going to be season 3 of Origins. And we all know that Imp is the main character, and that Hollow is no longer the main character, but she's still an amazing and important character nonetheless, so we decided to give her a look that looks a lot more like the in real life version of the dog. She is part shepherd, so she's got some new patterns now, which honestly makes her look so much better. And of course she has lovely ram horns because of her shadow being the ram. Her shadow I wanted to be quite unique because I wanted it to be obviously some sort of helmet to reinforce the horns and add an extra set of horns, but also I thought about the ram's structure and what's so strong about the ram other than the horns, and obviously their hooves are pretty strong. So I decided to give Hollow these little boots to sort of enhance her. And that is our lovely redesign of Hollow. Elena is getting major changes, and it is a great change. Elena's previous color palette was just so dull to me, and honestly, too close to the original Bobcat, because she is a Bobcat, but when Reapers transform, they usually enhance their colors or change in some sort of way. They don't necessarily always have to, but I figured this would be a good opportunity to sort of either make it look more like the Bobcat or less. And while I was playing around, I definitely found that I kind of wanted to keep it the same. Not all Reapers change in their afterlives after all, and the colors of Reapers determine what they're going to be. It's sort of like a future prediction thing, whereas their eye color tells them about what their life was before they became a Reaper. So obviously Elena is going to be the tank of the team. She is the strongest of all of them. She is the most physically built, so she is the buff girl. Now, she's very strong, and now she has these lovely little tufts on her ears. I decided to make the tops of her head, the little tufts on the top of her head, kind of look like rhino horns, since that is her shadow. The shadow that she has is a rhino, so now she has a lot of rhino-like features, especially with those shadows. She has armor, she has spikes, she has the horn on top of her head. She is a warrior, and I am so happy with how her design came out, with the little hints of mint to really complement her eyes. Elena, you are beautiful. Look at her. Absolutely flawless. Our next Reaper is going to be Lusk, who is our resident fox. She is actually one of the youngest Reapers in the Rift, which is very impressive. She's kind of the spirit of the group. She keeps everybody happy. She keeps everything kind of joyous. So I wanted that to really show off in her design. So now she has these kind of like rounded poofs, and also I wanted them to come out of her ears because her shadow is the raven. So I wanted it to almost resemble some wings. And obviously, her previous colors were not nearly as vibrant, but I am a sucker for vibrant colors now, especially in a magical, mythical place like the Rift. These colors would be everywhere, so the camouflage would honestly help. So now she has a lot more purples to her design because her eye color has always been purple, but I decided to add a little bit more and make it really pop. And of course, when she uses her shadow, she has a nice pair of wings and a beak to resemble her raven. That is our new Lusk design. Very colorful. I believe this Reaper has the most stark difference in character design change, and it's Kona. I've decided to change a lot about this character. Mostly because this character was very similar to Imp and Morven already, and I didn't want him to seem like just another copy of those characters. So now he is very different. He's actually very old now, which is interesting. He used to be kind of a teenage brat character, but now he's going to be grumpy old man energy. And I really wanted him to have this gruff kind of rugged attitude, and because his shadow is a shark, I definitely wanted to play around with the spikes. So he's got all of these different spikes. He's got a little, looks like a little fin on top of his head. One of the spikes on his back is very large to resemble a shark fin, and of course his tail is split to look like a shark fin as well. He is very in touch with his shadow, so I wanted that to really resemble in his design. The exact species of shark that Kona's shadow is a blacktip reef shark. Of course, we keep those lovely yellow eyes, but I decided to add some little snaggle teeth. Like he's got some more or less unappealing features because I tend to find those the most admirable in characters. And I really, really love how this turned out. And of course, the lovely shadow is going to be enhancing what's already there, but now we have a pair of gills on Kona, so now Kona can be a water breather, which is fantastic and will open up a lot of cool opportunities for scenes in the future. And that is our lovely redesign for our Timberwolf Reaper, Kona. Dazen is next, and boy, I did not change very much about Dazen's design other than I thought it would be fun to have some accessories. Not many of the Reaper characters have accessories, but because Dazen is the resident alchemist and is the magic doer of the group, I imagine Dazen would be the one to carry a bag around, because that is how Dazen uses their abilities. He definitely deserved to have these lovely goggles, because he's always working on some sort of tinkering project, some sort of mythical, magical machine. So I figured that those would be great to protect his eyes, but also enhance his abilities. And I decided to change up his tail a little bit so that way it mimics his shadow, which is a walrus. And because his mask really already has those giant teeth on them, I decided to make the shadow more like the tail that he could use to propel himself forward or sort of whack things out of the way. And that is Dazen's final design. Shiva's redesign is another one we did on a stream, but I slightly tweaked more here. Honestly, Shiva is very small and nimble, so I wanted that to reflect in her design as well. She's also more of a short-haired cat, so I definitely changed it from her first design to have a little more slim features. She's very lengthy, and she has the dragon shadow, and I really wanted that to show in her design. So there's lots of little specks of what it looks like to be scales, but they're made out of bone. Her horns are very extravagant. I love how the horns turned out because they look like rose thorns, because Shiva has a very large rose motif. If you've ever seen the AMV I released a long time ago in 2020, which is the Broken Crown AMV, lots of rose symbolism with her character, so I loved having the rose designs on her horns, as well as some gold tips with a little bit of that gold chain to resemble how important the pocket watch was to her at one point. Because yes, it was Shiva's pocket watch. That was hers. I changed up her scar just a little bit because Reaper scars I realized would be a very different color. They would be that essence color of their soul. It would be this very dark, sandy kind of matter that would come out of any wound of a Reaper. So obviously the scars would be a little bit darker, which worked out really nice in her design. Obviously, I carried along her spikes all the way down to her tail, where she has a lovely stabby thingy at the very end because of her dragon shadow. And of course, when her shadow appears, she can use those lovely wings. Previously, the wings were made of bones, but let's be real, guys. How would that work? Bone wings? How would that work? How would they fly? I know this is already a story about talking cats who are pink and purple and blue and all these crazy things and blah 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 blah, but I draw the line at bone wings. That wouldn't work. It would just... like, it wouldn't even work, I'm sorry. So that design was thrown out the window. As for her mask, however, I did want to add a little crack on the side where she has her scar on her actual bone mask. So that's also just a really fun feature I added. And that is Shiva's final design. Absolutely stunning. Ralvani has been one of my favorite characters for a long time, and I'm so happy to finally give her some love. Especially because I've improved so much on humans thanks to Brightside Masks RPG. I decided to keep her hair short and purple and keep her eyes orange just like the original character. And I kept a little bit to the original outfit, but I decided to change it up a little tiny bit. Obviously, she still has those lovely skull shoulder pads, but I wanted to add her sword because she does have a pretty awesome broadsword. And then, obviously, I wanted to add some more emphasis on that red cape because red is the color of her rift. The Meta Rift has red coloration, and obviously the Aqua Rift has blue, while the Terra Rift, which is Shiva's faction, has yellow. Her weapon of choice isn't actually her broadsword, it's just sort of a precautionary measure that she carries it around, but her real weapons are these dice. She has 2 skull dice that she rolls, and that's how she bases her powers off of. She has a different power every time she rolls those dice, and she never knows what she's going to get. So that is honestly her ultimate weapon, and if she gets something bad, that's when the broadsword comes out. I also decided to add some scars onto Ralvani because her death was quite tragic. She burned. So I decided to add some flames onto her skin to sort of show off the fact that, hey, this is the way that she died. Because Reaper scars pretty much appear and manifest because of how important they are to either a Reaper's life, death, or afterlife. And of course, because she is the bull, I decided to add a little earring, a little gold earring to kind of resemble a little tag on the bull's ear, and some gold accents to match it. When her shadow appears, I figured the only thing that would appear is a lovely tail that she can extend and whip around, because her horns are always present as she is the leader. And that is Ralvani's new design. Next up we have Scana, who I also redesigned on a live stream previously, but we're just going to tweak it up a little tiny bit here. Scana is an orca with the mammoth shadow, so because of that I decided to keep the horns. That was a feature I always wanted to keep, but I was very uncertain about where the tusks would go. And that's when I decided, wow, we have new lore about these shadows. The tusk will just appear as a shadow, and obviously when he puts on his mask. The harpoon that goes straight through his jaw is always going to be there. That is a major part of his character. And I was thinking about changing the purple a little bit, but honestly, I love bragging and saying I have a giant purple whale in my show. It's just wonderful, it's beautiful, and I love it, and I don't want to change it, so it's staying. And I decided to scatter a little bit of the bone fragments around Scana's design to sort of show how ancient his shadow is as a mammoth, and also to resemble his home where there's lots of icebergs. And that is pretty much it for Scana's design. Not much changed from the live stream design other than we put the tusks on for only when the shadow appears. Let me introduce you to the next character of redesigning, Reaper Reed. It wasn't really explained in the show, but it will be in the next few seasons of Origins, that Reed, Ivy's partner, who was not the best person, actually becomes a Reaper. At the end of Ivy's episode in Origins Season 2, you will see Reed running off into the road. It's unfortunate, but that is unfortunately where he does die and become a Reaper. But that's when his story takes a change for the better. You will see that very soon. I'm not going to go too much into that, but Reaper Reed does have this lovely blue to him. He has the shadow of the blackbird, to resemble the blackbird he once killed as a child, and how much that changed him. I also decided to add some cracks in his Reaper mask to resemble the scars that he gave Ivy. This character is going to go through a lot of change, and I can't wait for you guys to see. I also decided to keep the broken wing on Ren, which is Reed's Reaper name, R-E-N-N, because the broken wing really resembles how he was discussing with his mom how his wings are broken and he can't fly away from the nest, and how much trouble he got in his life and how bad everything got towards the end that made him ultimately leave it and become a Reaper. So the wing resembles that brokenness that he needs to heal. But when he uses his shadow, that's when the actual full blackbird wings come out and he's able to fly. The green eyes are from his dad, actually, because he did end up becoming his father, unfortunately, and that is what Reaper eyes usually resembles who you are in your life. Give it up for Reaper Reed, also known as Ren. Let's see how his story develops in the future. Our last Reaper is going to be Reaper Cypress. I've always known Cypress was going to be a Reaper from day one, but his design has always been a real struggle for me. Because I was able to redesign Cypress's alive form, I was actually able to make a Reaper form a lot easier. Because I know that when Cypress was alive, I used a lot of blue colors to match his blue eyes and his sort of blue character and how down he is, and all of his fur kind of sags and he has that one tuft covering his eyes. Now in his Reaper form, we see the same things except inverted. Instead of it being light colors, he's going to be very dark. We always joked that this form of Cypress is actually skunk Cypress, but now we've changed the skunk coloration to sort of add some reds. I was going for a lot of red in the beginning, but then I realized he looked a little too much like Imp. But I wanted him to definitely foil Imp because Imp and Cypress are major character foils, and I loved having their symbolism go back to back, but in the end, I decided to keep the red a little more minimalized. Cypress, or as you'll know him as a Reaper as Sin, short for Cinder, Sin's shadow is actually a heron, which is a lovely water bird, and I decided to add almost like this little feather for Sin's shadow. This like long feather that can be whipped around. I could have given Cypress some wings, but then again, I don't think he has the ability to fly yet. I think we're gonna keep it simplistic to start, and as Sin rises through the ranks in the Rift, maybe then we'd unlock some wings later on in the future. And this is our lovely boy Cypress as a Reaper. Sin, you are even more edgy somehow, and I don't know how that happened, but I'm happy for you. Good for you. Now that we got all of the Reapers done, let's go ahead and reflect on all the changes that we made to the new designs versus the old ones. As far as Imp goes, he's definitely changed a little bit in design, but not nearly as much because he is such an iconic character. I couldn't really change too terribly much, but we did round off those ears, give him some freckles, and now he's got a little bit more detail when it comes to his shadow, which is the cobra. As for Morven, we've obviously added some more detail and colors to the tortoise shell that he sports, and we've also added a little bit more stubbiness and roundness to his design. He is a short king, and we love that for him, and he can just be angry about it all he wants. Hollow got a major glow up with all the different patterns to resemble the shepherd that she's based off of, and we also played a lot with the different types of shadows and what we can do to really enhance a Reaper's abilities based off their shadows, and I love that about her design. Elena looks more like a real bobcat, honestly, and I love how much more vibrant the colors are, how much more thoughtful her design is, with the rhino horns being like the tufts of her hair and all the spikes and all the fun little edges of her character. She is literally by far my favorite. Lusk has major improvements, looks a lot more fox-like, definitely has a lot more to her character with the roundness and the fluffiness to resemble her raven shadow, but also just how fun and bouncy she is as a character. Again, absolutely one of my favorites for sure. Kona is drastically different, and I love that for Kona. Just becoming this kind of gruff, spiky old man, and I love that for him. All of his snaggly toothness, all of his big ol' spikes as far as looking like the shark fin goes. Oh man, I really enjoy Kona's redesign, and I hope you agree. Good old Dazen, keeping it the same, pretty much, except for some lovely accessories. Love the swirly goggles, those will be so much fun to draw in the new seasons. And of course, gotta love the pink accents. Pink has always been Dazen's color, and I'm happy to have kept it. Speaking of pink, Shiva. Pink Shiva is a reality, and I'm so happy because pink and gold are wonderful accents together. Love how her previous design had a silver eye, but now it's gold to resemble the pocket watch. Love the crack in her mask and how the little pieces of the scales are like bones on her body. It just, wow, I love how much it connects to her shadow as a dragon. Really enjoying the pink Shiva timeline we're living in. Ralvani, my girl, look at her! She has had a glow up, and she hasn't changed too terribly much, but oh, the redesign for the outfit, the colors are so much better. They pop so much more. They really bring you into certain areas like the eyes and the little accents, and I love her little bull tail, it's so cute! And the earring too has to be one of my favorite parts of this redesign. Scana didn't have too many changes, but I do love what we came up with on stream together. I love how much more vibrant the colors are. It was so dull before, but now we just went full on. If we're gonna have a purple whale, we're gonna have a purple whale, and now we do, and we are living our best lives with this series. We can just have so much fun with it, and I love that. Reaper Wren, oh boy, I love my blueberry child. Look at this beautiful bean with those green accents to match his father's eyes, and how he's working so hard to overcome what he became. And oh boy, redemption arc time, we'll see. We'll see in season 3 of Origins. And lastly, our boy Sin. We kept the lovely skunk Cypress in our timeline, but changed it up to be even more edgy. Who would have thought Cypress could have got even more edgy? But he did, and we gave him a cute little feather to top it off. I really enjoy this because it connects him to Imp in a way with the red. They foil each other, and there's just something about the little red nose. It's just so cute. I love this for them. And that concludes the redesigns for all of the Reapers that are going to appear throughout Origins. Of course, there's some more characters that'll be coming, but I want to keep those a little bit secret so you guys have some surprises along the way. But these were some of the pre-existing ones that I would like to redesign and show you guys the process. Stay tuned for the next episode of the Origins redesign series, where we will be starting on some sidekick characters. There'll be 2 episodes, as there are many of those characters, and we're going to do half of them in one episode and the other half the next. Thank you all so much for the love and support with the series. If you have any comments, please let me know down below. Who was your favorite? Who was your least favorite? What would you change? I would love to hear it. You never know. Some of these things that are in these character designs are from you guys, and I would love to have it be a collaboration. Honestly, that's what makes it so much fun. So thanks so much for being a part of the journey, and we will see you next time.